With just a 1% conviction rate in sexual assault matters that are reported to police, why is it that we keep encouraging survivors to come forward and report to police when really the price they pay is loss of family, friends, career, finances, your mental and physical health, too often deteriorating into self-harm and suicide?
Yasmin.
I mean, I completely agree that the answer to somebody coming forward shouldn't just be, well, why didn't you take it to the courts, or why didn't you go to the police? There are a myriad of reasons, and I don't want to speak for survivors, but a myriad of reasons. You know, I think the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse found that it was, decades before often survivors would actually come forward. So again, I think it's something that Grace Tame was emphasising, was when she stepped forward, it was teachers that came forward and said, we hear you, we stand with you. It was her peers that said, how can I help, but know that I'm with you always. So when it comes to the legal system, that's a whole other kettle of fish, but it's about how the community actually responds, hears and listens to survivors. And, even if we look at what's happening with Parliament right now, that's a clear example of what not to do. We actually need to sit and listen and try to be there as much as we can.
Yeah, Michael, from your point of view, why are we encouraging survivors to come forward when we know what happens to them if and when they do?
I mean, I want to be clear, I have nothing but respect for survivors that report to police. I think it's an incredibly brave thing to do. And only 10% of sexual assault survivors do go to the police, because 90% of people who are sexually assaulted, frankly, they do not trust that they will be well treated. And that suspicion is well placed. We know that engagement with law enforcement can be really difficult, although I think there's been improvements over the last 10 years. But the prosecution process is absolutely brutal. It is absolutely brutal. There's no question about that. And there is a tremendous amount of work that we need to do to reform the criminal justice system so that it is legitimately delivering justice for survivors, and that is not the case at the moment.
Do you have a view as to how we can do that? Let's talk solutions.
Look, I think the point that Yasmin raised is absolutely correct. I think we need, if not specialist courts, then we need, police, prosecutors, everyone involved in the criminal justice system needs to be trauma-informed. They need specialist training. And there are options for law reform as well, so that actually, we can increase the likelihood of prosecution without in any way, abrogating the rights of the accused.
Vince, I want to bring Vince back in. Over 30 years, you must have encountered many, many cases. From your point of view, why is this such a failing system in terms of individuals seeking justice?
Have you got a week?
No.
It's a brutal process, it is. And I would have lost count the number of times that I sat in on interviews with offenders or interviewed offenders for rape. I would have lost count. Gosh. I'd look at it from a different perspective, and Saxon may or may not agree with me because I have never been in her shoes. I've been on the other end. But I view it as that the victim is far better than the criminal. Is far stronger and far braver than the dirtbag that committed that sexual assault, that scumbag that they need to pay for their crime. And I think that as a former police officer, that it is hard to balance the views and the respect of a victim, because every victim is different. I had a 14-year-old girl who was abducted at St Mary's when I was at St Mary's Detectives, raped in the back of a panel van, and she was the most stoic individual over 2 years that led to the conviction of the two men. Yet in other cases, you have a 30 or 40-year-old woman who can't cope generally with the situation. So there's different thresholds of...
As a cop trying to sort of help people pursue justice and enforce justice, did you feel whilst in service that you failed?
Oh, look, yeah, absolutely, because you're there. Look, there are excellent... People might not agree, but there are excellent police officers there. There are excellent people in corrections. There are excellent people in probation and parole, and attorney generals and the witness support and the NGOs who are all there trying to do their very best for the victims. But the reality is, at the end of the day, as Saxon well knows, you are sitting in that witness box alone and your reputation is being carved up, and I hate to say it, but there's only two types of justice. those that can afford it and those that can't. And if you get a barrister or solicitor who is very good, they will degrade you and cut you to shreds and make you look like you are the liar, when in actual fact, you're not. So how do you get around that? At the end of the day, I don't think that whatever process is in place, because there are drug courts that deal with just with drugs, but at the end of the day, the victim's going to have to get in the witness box and give them evidence, and you can prepare that victim, as I used to do and a lot of my friends, take them into the court beforehand, explain the process, explain the legal jargon, but once they're in their witness box, they're on their own, and there's absolutely nothing you can do sitting back at the court going, oh my God, this poor individual's been carved up, and we have done our very best to try and get them through the process. But I agree, it's brutal.
Saxon, you now work in advocacy. Do you tell people when they come forward, yes, it's worth reporting, yes, go through this process?
I do get that question a lot. And it is I guess I try and gauge how that survivor is feeling. It's really personal to every survivor what they see as justice. You know, some people might not even consider going to the police or going through the court system. So, you know, that's totally off the table from the word go. But it's really about judging what each survivor feels is justice. But if someone asks me, is it worth going through the policing process, the court process, I don't know that I can be a massive advocate for it because, like you said, it's a brutal system. I think if we implement some of those changes that Michael was talking about, that will go some of the way to helping it. But we need a full-scale reform of all of those responses.
Just as an individual, I think most people can never know what you went through. How close does it come to breaking you?
I don't think it comes close. I think it just does.
I'm really very sorry to hear that, Saxon. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. We really appreciate it.